In the beginning, part 3, we are looking at creation. We're going back to Genesis and we're just doing this study on creation just from a perspective with this ministry. This is the Amazing Grace Women's Retreat Ministry, and glad to have you all join. If you'd like to hear more teachings and know when they drop in to YouTube, please just subscribe. If you'd like to have others to see our teachings and maybe like the teaching or share it with someone. We are here in Genesis chapter 1. We have left off in our last teaching at verse 13. Today we're going to start in verse 14. This is the third part of our series on In the Beginning, and we'll be back next week with the teaching number 4, which will be part 4. You'll see when it comes in the beginning. We share teachings on here, typically Monday through Thursday daily. And so you can get 4 of those teachings typically every week. So Genesis chapter 1 and verse 14. So let's just briefly recap before we start reading verse 14. And remember that before God spoke anything into existence, there was darkness and there was waters. It said that the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light," which was the first part of creation that He made, light. And so the very first day, God made light. And the second day, God made the firmament, and He called this heaven. And so there even is a false religion out there that says this is the heaven that God is going to establish His kingdom. And they're not too far off when they say this, but they say that this is the heaven that God is present on. And that is a false doctrine, because we know that God is in His own, His throne and His own place, which Paul speaks of in the New Testament as the third heaven. We're going to get into the teaching about the first, second, and third heaven today, but I wanted to briefly mention it as God calls this firmament that He has made on the second day. He calls it heaven. Now he basically everything in this firmament, it revolves around humanity, and we're seeing that in the study of creation. As the very first thing that God did with the firmament, which He did this on the third day, as He said, "Let the dry land appear, and the seas that lay in around this dry land," which we know is the earth. It calls it the earth here in Scripture when we were looking at this in our teaching of part number 2. So in the beginning, part 2, we talked about this. And so not only just the earth and those seas that are in and around the earth, we talked about the plant life that He also made on the same day, and how this earth was perfectly groomed and just perfect, beautiful, before mankind ever touched it, this perfect earth. Now, when we think about earth today, because we're looking at the solar system, we're looking at what God made beyond that. We're looking at the 4th day of what He made today. We're going to see the sun, moon, and stars. But the earth is the planet that is the only life-sustaining planet in the whole universe, right? In the whole solar system and everything. It is, so we understand this when we look at it from the truth and the aspect of creation, because we know that God was creating, He was working, creating all these things for mankind. He has given mankind dominion over the earth. Mankind has even got minds that were given to us that are so fabulous and amazing that we can see many, many thousands of light years away, and they still, in this whole universe and in all of the galaxies, in everything, there is only one life-sustaining planet, that is Earth. Earth is actually covered primarily in water. You probably remember that from school, learning that in school. It's about 71% covered in water, so there's only 29% that's actual land that is being used for food. In some ways, right? We get some food from our oceans and our ponds and things like this in our water, but we get a lot of food and everything from the earth, and we have our houses built on it, and we have our highways built on it, and it's only actually 29% above the water. So 71% approximately is all covered in water on the earth, and 29% of it is where these 8 billion people in their houses and their cars and, you know, their vacation houses some people have, and all of this, and our farmland, our barns. I mean, just think about this concept. The earth is pretty amazing and pretty large, but very small in the grand scheme of things, right? But it is this creation that God was creating. And whenever he made this firmament on the second day that he called heaven, earth comes out of it, and everything revolves really around the earth. Now we know in the solar system, everything is revolving around the sun, right? And so the earth, some people, you know, say, you know, had another trip around the sun when they celebrate their birthdays, because, you know, the earth goes around the sun one time a year. Mars, it's different. It takes 681 or 687 or 681 days to go around the sun. We're going to see that here in just a minute. But when we see this creation of the solar system, the sun, moon, and stars, start thinking about, why did God make that for us? Why did he do this? And we're going to see here in Scripture. Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. It says, "And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." Isn't it amazing that even science will teach us this? That we know so much about this universe and about our galaxy and about our planets. We're learning more and more. But enough to know that they are for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Scientists study a lot about what's going on the earth by the galaxy, by the solar system, right? They've even started talking about how they think maybe the earth is picking up its pace a little bit, moving a little bit faster around the sun. See, this is what science studies, so they're actually concerned about that. If you can kind of Google search that. They also are concerned, you know, they call it global warming, but we know that it's all part of God coming back and the changes that are going to be happening in the solar system when God comes back. Because why? We know this because Scripture tells us. We're not going to have a study on that today, but Scripture does tell us that there's going to be things happening in the sky and up in the solar system. God says, for signs, and you will know that I'm coming back, he says. And let them rule for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, that's the sun, and the lesser light to rule the night, we know that's the moon, and made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven. Remember, God called this firmament heaven, to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the 4th day. And there's something. On the 4th day, God made the sun, the moon, and the stars. And remember, we talked about, why did God make this? And for us to think about it, why did he make these things? Well, he made them for signs, for seasons, for days and years. And it says he made them for lights, one to rule the day and the lesser by night. And it says, and he made the stars also. Doesn't really say what's the intent of the stars. But part of why, you know, God made it for us, because he made it for us. Like, what's the reason God made it for us? It was for earth. It was for humanity, because everything with creation is building into his perfect and his most treasured creation, which is humans, mankind, because God wanted a relationship with us. He wanted to share his glory with us. And so, why? God gave you something to look at, something for your eyes to see, your skin to feel. You can feel the warmth of the sun, can't you? And isn't it beautiful how the moon reflects on this earth and even on waters? I was watching the sunrise this morning. I went out first thing this morning as soon as I woke up and went out onto my porch and just was watching the sun rise in the sky, how it was just so pink over in an area, and it got more and brighter, like a pink and orange shades, and then started to rise and to light up the sky. And it's just beautiful that God has given this to us, but you can feel the warmth of the sun when it rises, and we can see those things. And isn't it amazing? Never ever take for granted what God has done for you, what God has allowed you to see and to experience in this beautiful, perfect creation that he made. Think about this. The next time you go outside and you look up into the sky and you see that splendor of the shades of blue and white, you see the sun and it's ruling the day. And when you at night see the moon and it is ruling the night, all of these things are for signs and for seasons and for days and for years, and they are for light to rule the day and light to rule the night. And God allowed us to see and experience those. What splendor. What a joy. Let's not take it for granted what God has made for us. So I want you to think about something with me. Some things that we learned about in school. Most of us, I'd say, learned about in school. That there are 4 planets that are the closest to the sun. They're not the warmest planets. Isn't that something? They're not the hottest planets, thank goodness, right? Because one of them is Earth. So there's Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars that are considered like the rocky type planets. But only Earth is the planet, the only one that sustains life. And then beyond Mars, which is the one that's the furthest away from the sun, of those 4, right, that are closest to the sun, beyond Mars, there is what science calls an asteroid belt. Now, they say that these are remnants of the planets that when they exploded into space. Remember, because supposedly all this grand design is just an explosion that just happened and it just kind of evolved on itself, which we know is it's Satan, giving lies, because Satan is a deceiver. And so he spreads lies through many different avenues, but he even spreads it through science. But science does have some truth in it too, because science can see light years away with telescopes, and still they have not found any other planet to sustain life. And if they should ever say that they have, we know that would be demonic. It would be of Satan. Remember, Satan and a third of the angels were kicked out of heaven, where God is, the third heaven, that Paul speaks of in the New Testament. And so that they are present here. So if it should ever, come, which they are talking about it some now, UFOs and other life forms, whatever, you can rest assured that it's going to be something spiritual like that. And it would either be spiritual evil, which is Satan would be behind it, and a third of the fallen angels, or it could be, we know that there's angels of God that are here too. We do know that according to Scripture. Talks about different types of angels. Talks about seraphims. Talks about Michael the archangel. We know that they are, and even the Bible tells us that we can entertain angels unawares as people. So we know that there's angels. So we do know there's a spiritual world that our physical eyes primarily do not see. There's times when people see things in the spiritual world with their physical eyes. So you have Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, which are the rocky planets. And then there's that asteroid belt. Remember that science says it's just the remnants of planets from the explosion. We know they're all with intent, that God has put them here, because as we study creation, we know that there is a creator that has created everything. Now, on the other side of that asteroid belt, there's 4 more planets in our solar system: Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. These planets are Mercury is the closest physically to the sun, but it's not the hottest planet. Isn't that something? Mercury is physically the closest planet to the sun, but it's not the hottest planet. Venus is actually the hottest planet. And then there's Mars, which is the red, what's it called, the red planet. And this is a gassy planet. So these 4 planets are these gassy planets, which has a lot of iron on its surface. Mars does. So Earth, though, again, is the only planet that sustains life, and 21% of it, or 29% of the Earth, is where the actual land is above the water. I find this to be amazing. And so when we look at these planets, and we look at our solar system, and we look at the fact that Earth is the only life-sustaining planet, we see that God, when He created everything on that 4th day, right, that He created it for us. This is all building into God making mankind and creating mankind, creating humanity. And it was all for us. Isn't this amazing to see? I hope y'all have enjoyed today's teaching on In the Beginning, Part 3. And that as you look up into our solar system and you look up into the sky and you see these planets, you see the stars, you see the sun ruling your day and the moon at night, that you don't take it for granted and you don't look at it just the typical, just the norm. We're just here, and God forbid that you ever should think that this all just came from some accidental explosion or whatever, and all of a sudden now we've got highways and we've got, we've got telescopes that can see light years away. We just don't. It's hard for us to even comprehend how far away they're actually seeing with these telescopes, and still no sign of other life, right? Other than what they're trying to pull out now and say now about the UFOs and things like this. Don't be surprised if they don't produce something and there actually is something else. Remember, Satan, Satan himself took the form of a serpent in the Garden of Eden. Satan is a master at manipulation. So what is he going to come up with between now and the time the Lord comes back? Well, we may see some more of that, right? Time may still be yet that we are going to be here for a little bit. Who knows? But we know this, that the Lord is going to come back for His people, and the closer that we get to His return, we're going to see more and more of the truths of His Word being made and revealed before all the people. And so it's amazing. We know that everything is going to happen exactly the way that God said that it would. He does not deceive His people. God is not a deceiver. God is truth, and His Word is truth. Well, God bless you all. I hope, again, that you've enjoyed today's teaching and that you've enjoyed the study of In the Beginning. And I can't wait until we get to the part about when God creates mankind, and we can spend some time thinking about that together and studying that together. God bless you.